Well, A-B very quickly between the rough and where my balance was. This is the rough. So there's immediately, obviously, a huge jump in the bass drum and snare, which you notice really quickly. Other things I did on this, I really like dub, reggae, and reggae in general. And I can see I've got an AMS sending off the horns. So let's just have a quick listen to those horns. And it makes a big difference because they play throughout the song. And the horns are sort of really important to this. If I take the horns off the bass, you'll hear this sort of...
Look up here, I'm in heaven.
Yeah, there's a few things that happen at the end that are a bit interesting. If you want to do some detail stuff like this guitar, there's a chop guitar that comes in the third verse. That's how I have it in the mix, but it came in like this. Yeah, going back to channel 25, my lead vocals here, I'm bypassing the line input and I'm coming straight back in the insert return because I've got a Neve 1081, which is this one over here. So my signal path is Neve 1081 into a Blackface Yuri 1176 into a CL1B Tube Tech compressor. And that comes back the insert return, and I'm doing a little bit of EQ on the console, again subtractive but adding a little bit of high end. That signal path will stay like that for most of the time. I don't change it that often. I find the combination of the Yuri and the Tube Tech, they're both doing quite different things. The Yuri is acting very quickly. If I play the lead vocal, we don't even need to hear it, but you can see the meters doing what they're doing.
Look up here, I'm in
Yuri's doing not even 3 dB compression here.
I've got scars that can't be seen.
Well, what the Tube Tech's nice for me is that I can see the output level, you know, of the vocal going back to the console. Sometimes I don't want to drive it too hard.
Everybody.
You can see the Tube Tech is behaving a bit slower, much slower release compared to the Yuri, which is the fastest release. On the 1081, I'm filtering the low end at 47 Hertz. I might add some high end, but I'm not on this mix. But usually if I do, it's 15K. The high end on a 1081 is great.
I've got nothing left to lose.
Having two compressors gives me a lot of, options or the ability to manipulate a vocal. The Yuri can be a lot more what I call trigger happy. It'll compress more. The Tube Tech is doing something much more slow, much more like a sort of Fairchild on 3. I've got the option with the Neve of turning up the input to the compressors or turning it down so it doesn't do so much. But it just gives me as maximum flexibility as I need for a mix. So, quite often the Tube Tech, let's look at it now. So I'm hitting about 7 or 8 on the Yuri and about 3 on the Tube Tech. Okay, on this mix I'm adding 33 Hertz a bit of, I really don't know why. I just wanted the vocal to have body, to have, the weight, and obviously adding some low end to it's going to give it some more body. Weirdly, I'm also subtracting 33 Hertz here. This song, because of the dynamics of this song, because the vocal delivery comes in pretty much on point on the verse, I didn't need to ride him too much. I don't think there's lots of vocal rides